In the House of the Dragon adaptation, Lord Lionel Strong said something interesting.
King Jaehaerys ruled over half a century of peace while his children drove him to the edge of madness. His daughters in particular.
One of those daughters was Alyssa Targaryen, the mother of King Viserys and Prince Daemon Targaryen. In this video, we are going to go over the full life of this awesome character, Alyssa Targaryen. Good Queen Alysanne's first child was named Daenerys Targaryen. When Daenerys died, the queen was very depressed. The moon had not turned twice since Princess Daenerys' death when her grace learned that she was once again carrying a child. With winter holding the realm in its icy grip, the queen once again chose caution and retired to Dragonstone. Late that year, 60 AC, she delivered her fifth child, a daughter she named Alyssa after her mother. Winter broke not long after the queen gave birth, and Alyssa proved to be a lively, healthy child. As a babe, she was so like her late sister Daenerys that the queen oft wept to behold her, remembering the child she had lost. The likeness faded as the princess grew older, however. Long-faced and skinny, Alyssa had little of her sister's beauty. Her hair was a dirty blonde tangle with no hint of silver to evoke the dragonlords of old, and she had been born with mismatched eyes, one violet, the other a starling green. Her ears were too big and her smile lopsided, and when she was 6, playing in the yard, a whack across the face from a wooden sword broke her nose. It healed crooked, but Alyssa did not seem to care. By that age, her mother had come to realize that it was not Daenerys that she took after, but Baelon. Just as Baelon had once followed Aemon everywhere, Alyssa trailed after Baelon. Like a puppy, the Spring Prince complained. Baelon was 2 years younger than Aemon, Alyssa nearly 4 years younger than him, and a girl, which made it far worse in his eyes. The princess did not act like a girl, however. She wore boys' clothes when she could, shunned the company of other girls, and preferred riding and climbing and dueling with wooden swords to sewing and reading and singing, and she refused to eat porridge. 2 years later, the gods blessed Jaehaerys and Alysanne with yet another child, a daughter they named Maegelle. A gentle, selfless, and sweet-natured girl and exceedingly bright, she soon attached herself to her sister Alyssa in much the same way that Prince Baelon had attached himself to Prince Aemon, though not entirely as happily. Now, it was Alyssa's turn to bristle at having the baby clinging to her skirts. She evaded her as best she could, and Baelon laughed at her fury. Alysanne went on to have her 7th, 8th, 9th, and 10th children. In 68 AC, the king and queen announced the betrothal of their firstborn son Aemon, Prince of Dragonstone, to Jocelyn Baratheon of Storm's End. There had been some thought, after the tragic death of Princess Daenerys, that Aemon should wed Princess Alyssa, the eldest of his remaining sisters, but Queen Alysanne firmly put that thought aside. Alyssa is for Baelon, she declared. She had been following him around since she could walk. They are as close as you and I were at their age, she said to Jaehaerys. When Alyssa was 13, her younger brother Vaegon was 10 and her younger sister Daela was 9. One of the queen's companions, new to the Red Keep, teasingly asked the two of them when they would be married. Vaegon reacted as if he had been slapped. "I would never marry her," the boy said in front of half the court. "She can barely read. She should find some lord in need of stupid children, for that's the only sort he will ever have of her." Princess Daela, as might be expected, burst into tears and fled the hall with her mother, the queen, rushing after her. At 13 years old, Alyssa was 3 years Vaegon's elder, so she poured a flagon of wine over his head. Even that did not make the prince repent. "You are wasting arbor gold," was all he said before stalking from the hall to change his clothing. "He spends too much time in the library," Jaehaerys said. "Let me speak to Baelon. We will get him out in the yard. Put a sword in his hand and a shield on his arm. That will set him right." His Grace did indeed speak to Prince Baelon, who dutifully took his brother under his wing, marched him out into the yard, put a sword into his hand and a shield upon his arm. It did not set him right. Vaegon hated it. He was a miserable fighter, and he had a gift for making everyone around him miserable as well, even Baelon the Brave. Baelon persisted for a year at the king's insistence. "The more he drills, the worse he looks," the Spring Prince confessed. One day, mayhaps in an attempt to spur Vaegon into making more of an effort, he brought his sister Alyssa to the yard, shining in man's mail. The princess had not forgotten the incident of the arbor gold. Laughing and shouting mockery, she danced around her little brother and humiliated him 100 times, whilst Princess Daela looked down from a window. Shamed beyond endurance, Vaegon threw down his sword and ran from the yard, never to return. In 75 AC, Princess Alyssa was married to her older brother Baelon. The princess was 15, the groom 18. Unlike their father and mother, Baelon and Alyssa did not wait to consummate their union. The bedding that followed their wedding feast was the source of much ribald humor in the days that followed, for the young bride's sounds of pleasure could be heard all the way to Duskendale, men said. A Shire maid might have been abashed by that, but Alyssa Targaryen was as bawdy a wench as any barmaid in King's Landing, as she herself was fond of boasting. "I mounted him and took him for a ride," she declared the morning after the bedding, "and I mean to do the same tonight. I love to ride." Her brave prince was not the only mount the princess was to claim that year. Like her brothers before her, Alyssa Targaryen meant to be a dragon rider, and sooner rather than later. Aemon had flown at 17, Baelon at 16. Alyssa meant to do it at 15. According to the tales set down by the Dragon Keepers, it was all that they could do to persuade her to not claim Balerion. "He is old and slow, princess," they had to tell her. "Surely you want a swifter mount." In the end, they prevailed, and Princess Alyssa ascended into the sky upon Meleys, a splendid scarlet she-dragon never before ridden. "Red maidens, the two of us," the princess boasted, laughing. "But now, we've both been mounted." The princess was seldom long away from the dragon pit after that day. Flying was the second sweetest thing in the world, she would often say, and the very sweetest thing could not be mentioned in the company of ladies. The Dragon Keepers had not been wrong. Meleys was as swift a dragon as Westeros had ever seen, easily outpacing Caraxes and Vhagar when she and her brothers flew together. Prince Baelon had not ceased smiling since his marriage. When not aloft, Baelon and Alyssa spent every hour together, most oft in their bedchamber. Prince Baelon was a lusty lad, for those same shrieks of pleasure that had echoed through the halls of the Red Keep on the night of their bedding were heard many another night in the years that followed. And soon enough, the much-hoped-for result appeared, and Alyssa Targaryen grew great with child. In 77 AC, she gave her brave prince a son they named Viserys. Septon Barth described the boy as a plump and pleasant lad who laughed more than any babe I've ever known, and nursed so lustily he drank his wet nurse dry. Against all advice, his mother clapped the boy in swaddling clothes, strapped him to her chest, and took him aloft on Meleys when he was just 9 days old. Afterward, she claimed Viserys had giggled the whole time. In 81 AC, Prince Aemon reached his 26th name day. He had proved himself more than able in both war and peace. As the heir apparent to the Iron Throne, it was felt desirable that he take a greater role in the governance of the realm as a member of the King's Council. Accordingly, King Jaehaerys named the prince his justiciar and master of laws in place of Roderick Arryn. "I will leave the making of law to you, brother," Prince Baelon declared while shrinking at Prince Aemon's appointment. "I would sooner make sons." And that was just what he did. For later that same year, Princess Alyssa bore her spring prince a second son, who was given the name Daemon. His mother, irrepressible as ever, took the babe into the sky on Meleys within a fortnight of his birth, just as she had done with his brother Viserys. The 83rd year after Aegon's conquest is remembered as the year of the Fourth Dornish War, better known amongst the small folk as Prince Morian's Madness or the War of the 100 Candles. King Jaehaerys and his sons Aemon and Baelon were dragon riders. Vermithor, Caraxes, and Vhagar fell on Morian's fleet as it beat its way across the Sea of Dorne. Shouts rang out, and the Dornish filled the air with scorpion bolts, but firing at a dragon is one thing and killing it quite another. A few bolts glanced off the scales of the dragons and one punched through Vhagar's wing, but none of them found any vulnerable spots as the dragon swooped and banked and loosed great blasts of fire. One by one, the ships went up in gouts of flame. They were still burning when the sun went down, like 100 candles floating on the sea. That is why the Fourth Dornish War is also known as the War of the 100 Candles. The Fourth Dornish War was fought and won in a single day. Back in King's Landing, King Jaehaerys and his sons received a riotous welcome. Even Aegon the Conqueror had never won a war without losing a man. Prince Baelon had another cause for celebration as well. His wife, Alyssa, was again with child. This time, he told his brother Aemon he was praying for a girl. Princess Alyssa was brought to bed again in 84 AC. After a long and difficult labor, she gave Prince Baelon a third son, a boy they named Aegon, after the Conqueror. "They call me Baelon the Brave," the prince told his wife at her bedside, "but you are far braver than me. I would sooner fight 12 battles than do what you've just done." Alyssa laughed at him. "You were made for battles. I was made for this. Viserys and Daemon and Aegon, that's 3. As soon as I am well, let's make another. I want to give you 20 sons, an army of your own." Unfortunately, it was not meant to be. Alyssa Targaryen had a warrior's heart in a woman's body, and her strength failed her. She never fully recovered from Aegon's birth, and died within a year at only 24. Nor did Prince Aegon long survive her. He perished half a year later, still shy of his first name day. Though shattered by his loss, Baelon took solace in the 2 strong sons that she had left him, Viserys and Daemon, and never ceased to honor the memory of his sweet lady with the broken nose and mismatched eyes.